What's up, guys? Now this video is coming to you by popular demand. It actually is a follow-up to the first video I did a while ago on how I make my flying videos. That video was all about how I shoot them, and now this video is going to give you guys a little insight and a little perspective as to my process on how I edit these videos.
I'm Trent Palmer. I fly drones for a living and bush planes for fun. Follow along as I journey off the beaten path of aviation.
Now, before we get into this, I wanted to do a quick thank you and shout out to LastPass for sponsoring this video. LastPass is the leading online password manager used by millions to protect their identity and preserve their sanity. LastPass is actually a service that I found out about on my way to Oshkosh. We were flying with that whole group, and during that trip, one of my email accounts got hacked, and unfortunately it was an email account that had a password that I shared across a bunch of other accounts. So it turned into a nightmare. It was like while we were flying, traveling out there, I had to figure out a quick way to solve this issue because I felt so violated and honestly really intruded by the nature of the whole event. And luckily, Corey Robin, a friend of mine who flies with me, was like, hey, Trent, you need to download LastPass, figure this out, and that's what I did, and I've been using it ever since. So basically, LastPass relieves the trouble of looking for passwords and the anxiety of getting locked out of accounts. So go ahead and put your passwords on autopilot with LastPass. Anyway, guys, thanks again to LastPass for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into it. So really quickly, I just want to mention that I'm going to share with you guys just my process. It's not necessarily the right process. There's a ton of different ways to do this, a million ways to skin a cat. And it might not be what works for everyone. So take it with a grain of salt. If you're already into editing, I'm hoping that I can give you guys some tips that might make you a little bit better or more efficient. And for anyone that has not stepped into editing, I'm hoping that I can make it basic enough so that you can at least grasp some of it and maybe get your feet wet and start editing your own videos. Now, as a quick rundown of what I'm working on, I am working on a 2016 MacBook Pro. At the time, it was built out, I think, as good as I could get it. It's got 16 gigs of memory, the faster i7 processor. It's pretty fast, but not all that fast when it comes down to actually processing multiple 4K video clips together. So it's not necessarily the best machine, but I am working on Mac, so it'll be a little different if you're on a PC. Now, the editing software I use is Adobe Premiere Pro. Reason being, it's what I learned on way back in the day when I was in high school. For a while, when I was editing professionally in my career, I was working on Final Cut Pro. What I found through that, most of these non-linear editors, that's what they're considered when you're editing digitally, most of them are pretty similar. So it's kind of like pick whichever one that you feel like you could learn the easiest, something that you can afford, and something that works on your computer and that will allow you to get into it. I'm not going to say that you have to go out and get Premiere Pro because, for some people, if you're just dabbling in it, it's probably not worth spending the monthly subscription to get a software that you might not use. All right, so without further ado, let's get into this. Now, before I even open my editing software, everything starts with the media management. The way that you handle the footage you have off your memory cards and where you put it on your computer will start and set the framework for having a more streamlined workflow that I think will save you down the road. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take you guys through that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and insert the memory card that I have here that has a couple clips on it. This is just using, I'm just going to use this for demonstration purposes. And then I'll go down to Finder, open the folder I plan on putting it in. Now I have my other folder, which is where I keep all of my projects that I'm working on or have worked on, the ones that are basically stored on my computer. Now I keep all of these in the same spot on my computer so that I know where to go to get them. Basically, each one of these is going to be its entire own video project. So before I start transferring over any footage, I just go ahead in my folder that contains all my subfolders of projects. I'll go ahead and create a new folder by hitting Command-Shift-N, or you can right-click and hit New, and I will rename that folder whatever the project is. This one I'll just name How to Edit. Now inside of this main project folder, I'm gonna go ahead and create a subfolder for all the footage. Basically, I'm gonna take all the assets and parts and pieces that are gonna be in this project and put them as subfolders in here just to stay organized. So for footage, I will go ahead and make a new one and go footage. Then inside there, if I have multiple cameras, if you only have one, you could just drag your footage directly into there. When I have multiple cameras, I would go ahead and say, we got this one, which is the GX10, my main camera. This actually isn't from a GX10, and I just go through and find the actual video clips and bring those in. Now you don't have to go and just find the video clips. The reason I do that is it just kind of cleans up the file structure later. However, if you're working with something like, say, an action cam like a GoPro or some sort of 360 camera like this Garmin Verb 360 that has GPS data, you're not going to want to just take the video clips, because if you want to go back and reference the GPS data for some sort of heads up thing, you want to make sure you have that as well. So then I would take everything that's on your memory card, put it over into that folder. So then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for, we'll say I have my cockpit camera and so on and so forth. Now I'll normally make a separate folder in here and name it audio, and that's where I'll put my music tracks. I actually have one over here already that I'm just going to bring that over and put it in the audio folder. So after I have all my media managed into the folder that the entire project's going to be working out of, then I can go ahead and open up Premiere Pro. Now, while this is opening, I do really quickly want to mention that there's definitely some importance to this media managing thing, and I'm going to show you why here in a second. But basically, I like to keep all of my media, my assets, everything for the entire project in one folder. The reason being that when I'm done with the project, I can take that entire folder and move it over onto a separate disk, like a hard drive that's just for storage purposes, and that way all the footage is there. You don't want to end up with all these separated files that are God knows where on your computer. I try to keep everything consolidated so I'm not just filling up my computer unknowingly. So in Premiere, I'm gonna go ahead and click New Project. Now, first and foremost, just name it. I'm gonna go ahead and call this one How I Edit. And I'm gonna choose where I'm gonna put this. Now, this is important. This is where we're gonna go and use that same folder that I just showed you of where we're keeping our footage, is where we need to go ahead and save this project. Now, this is really important because it is gonna save all your render files, proxy files, any files or data that's created by this project. It will now save into this same folder, which keeps it consolidated and clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the How to Edit, choose, and then scratch disks should be all set to same as project. Make sure that you check that so that you have everything good there. As far as video display format, I don't normally worry about that. A lot of this is like capture. I'm not going to be capturing anything off of tape, so none of that really matters. Let's go ahead and hit OK to open the project. Now, really quickly, a quick rundown of the Premiere Pro interface. Now, up here at the top, you're going to see a window that has these multiple different tabs. Each of those tabs is a different workspace layout. Basically, it's just going to change the layout of the entire workspace and what panels it has, and as far as what tools and options you're using, you're going to want to work your way through these. Basically, just to run through them really quick, if you're just getting into it, I highly suggest going to the Learning tab. They're going to have Premiere Pro tutorials over on your left. Great place to start. But for me, I normally jump right into Assembly. This is the main one that I work in when I'm just doing my assembly of the edit, which is the most part of the edit, is just assembling things together. So as a quick rundown, this part on the left over here is going to be your project window. Now, this is where we go ahead and drag in all our files. It's not going to duplicate files and save them somewhere else on your computer. It's basically just referencing those ones that we already saved. So if I go ahead and open Finder, I can see that my assets here, I have both footage and audio. I'll just highlight both of those, drag and drop them into here. It's going to go ahead and import. And just like that, I've got now my footage and audio in here, and my footage is obviously broken up into each camera that I shoot with, being cockpit camera, GX10, that's my main vlogging camera, my little Osmo stabilized guy, wing and tail cameras. Now that I have everything over here, I should tell you about the other windows. Now, down here is the timeline. This is where you're gonna drop all your media and create a timeline or sequence. This is where you actually organize all the files that you have and assemble them into the video that you're creating. So normally to start one, I'll just take a clip. Let's say I find something like this. So basically all you do is double click on the clip to open it. Once you're there, you can see that the video is up here in the top, and you can scrub through pretty easily down here. You can also hit the space bar, is gonna allow it to play. But what I normally like to do is get to a part where the clip's actually starting. I hit I on the keyboard, which is the endpoint for starting that actual clip. Then we'll end up through, I'm gonna scrub it through fast, say it ends right there. I'm gonna hit the O button for the out. Now I've got in and out set on that clip. I can drag from either up here in the project window or the actual video itself down into the sequence. Now, doing that created us a new timeline or sequence. up here in the same name as that clip. I'm gonna go ahead and name this sequence how I edit. And basically that will tell me that my video and my sequence is named how I edit, the same as the project, same as the folder. This way you can go through and find the respective files in the folders. It's all named, it's all proper. Now really quickly to backtrack to where we just were, if I wanted to take the same clip, which one was that? This one. If I wanted to take the same clip and bring in just the video, but I didn't want to hear me yabbering in the background, I can click this little video icon and drag video only. Now down below here, you're gonna see all these different tracks. The upper ones up here are video tracks, which is why they're identified by these little eyeballs that you can turn off and on. The lower part are the audio tracks. So when I brought down the video and the audio, you're gonna see both. Here would just be video. It's not gonna have any audio that's playing with it. So again, to bring down another clip, I'll just go ahead and click forward onto this one, which looks like we're flying up to this coffee date, both Haley and I. Select an in, let it play for a second, whatever is the sweet spot. Then I'll hit O, and this one again, because it had engine noise, I'm just gonna bring the video portion down. Now you can go through and select different ins and outs on the same clip, just the parts you like. I'll actually jump forward to the next clip because I think that one's a little better. And oh yeah, here's a good moment. I point something out that's important. Boom, that's great. So then you can bring that down. I normally organize all my tracks on the lowest level, and you can set hierarchy throughout. Not necessary, it's however you want to work with your process. Now if I wanted to bring in the audio, like a music track, which I already imported under my audio folder, I would click on this. You again can set ins and outs if you wanted to find certain places that the music starts or ends. Or you can just take the whole thing, grabbing on that audio icon and dragging it down. Now, notice that I purposefully set the dialogue on the first audio track and music on the second. And I'll show you why a little later in this video, but really quickly, I wanna show you how I work with multi-camera sequences. Now, this is getting into a more advanced thing if you're someone that edits and looking to streamline your process. This is one of those cool tricks that I really like and I use a lot for these videos. Basically, what it allows me to do is I can take multiple cameras, like let's say this cockpit camera, the Osmo wasn't really synced, so I'm not gonna use that. But let's say I take the cockpit, tail, and wing camera, and I want them to be synced up because the way that I triggered them was all on the same remote, they all triggered at the same time, so they're essentially the same video, just from different angles. So what I'll normally do, the cockpit is normally the one that I have my audio plugged into, which I do because I can hear us talking. So what I do is I select the clip that has the audio on it, the audio I want to use, and holding down the command key on the keyboard, I click on the other clips that are the same take. Now, after that, right click on the original clip, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to go to create multi-camera source sequence. Now under this, I just have it start with endpoints. You could do it off time code or even the audio. They'll go through and it'll track audio, but given that some of the cameras are outside and they don't have any audio, there's nothing to track it and synchronize it off. So I just go with endpoints, yada yada. Sequence settings are for camera 1, and I believe it brings the audio from camera 1. I hit OK. It's going to remove all those clips, put them into this process clip, and now I have my multi-camera sequence right here. Now if I go ahead and open that, you guys will be able to see that now I have 3 angles that are all synced up and they're all running off the same audio. Pardon the quality with how big these files are. You normally have to go down and turn your raster view down just because these are all 4K videos. Playing 3 of those that are all this difficult codec at full res is pretty much not doable. But anyway, let's go see where we land, and I'll show you that it's all synced up. There we go. So the cool thing with these multi-camera sequences, just like any other clip, I can hit I to set an endpoint. I can hit the space bar and watch all 3 of them. There's the landings. Haley squealed because she got scared. But anyway, I can hit an out. Then I go ahead and can grab that with the audio, drag it down onto my sequence. Now, once I've got that main clip I liked, you can go through and pick that and say, I want to, right before we hit the ground, I'm going to change angles. I'll go ahead and hit the blade button, which is this tool over here, or keyboard shortcut B. Click on the clip, double click actually, and let's say I want to switch to this angle. Now what I've just done is made an edit where I can go from one angle to the other, Now the other option aside from using that blade tool over here B, if you want to make the cuts live, what you can do is actually hit the space bar to make it play on the sequence, and you can hit numbers 1, 2, or 3 to switch to the respective clip. So I'll go ahead and show you guys that. So if we're gonna go hit space bar, I'm gonna hit 3, so it's gonna switch angles, which was the same angle I was just on. I'll go 2, it switches again, and then I'll go back to 1 so I can show our reaction. Should be right here. So essentially what that allows you to do is really quickly jump between different angles and make them cut together very smoothly with everything synced up, both video and audio. Multicamming, very cool trick. It's obviously a more advanced maneuver and I just barely touched on it. So if you're looking at getting into this, I'm sure there's other tutorials you can find. I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of how I do the action camera portion of my flying. Okay, so once you've gone through, and let's just for fun, we'll bring in one more GX10 shot. This is this is actually where I broke the seat. So I'm yabbering about that. We'll go ahead and set an in and out. I'll bring that in. And just for argument's sake, we're gonna say that this is my edit. Now, a lot of people will call it just done after they do their rough assembly. Now, I was a professional editor for about 2 years. Before that, I used to make ski films. And then I've always been really into the techie side of perfecting things. So I'm not one that just does a rough cut and puts it out. I actually work my way through these tabs up at the top, going back to the first thing I talked about, the workspace tabs. And I go through and work my way through finalizing and finishing it in a more professional manner. So really quick rundown, the editing tab is where you're gonna be able to adjust clips and add effects. So if I take the clip that I'm on right here and say I wanted to zoom in on it, right here there's the scale under the motion tab up in the video effects. That's this top left window. You could go in and scale in, and if say I was, had a tire that was doing something crazy, I could zoom in on the tire. If I wanted to really quick, I could actually add keyframes to zoom out. That's what this button is with the little clock. You end up adding a keyframe right here on the timeline within that clip. I would add another just simply by adjusting it. Let's say we go, oh, I screwed this all up. I'm also gonna have to add a position frame because I didn't realize I moved that. And then I will go ahead and bring this back to, I don't actually know where it was. So then what you end up with is this little quick move in there. That's how I do my little zooms and transitions and all that. So that's the editing portion when you're actually manipulating things. There's also all your video effects, video transitions, all of that are down below in the effects palette down to the bottom left. After I finish that, I move on to color. Now I do all my color correcting here under the color tab. The Lumetri color is what it's called. I also use Magic Bullet Colorista. That's a plugin, but you guys don't need to get that. That's a kind of expensive, little add-on. So for the most part, everything you want to do can be done in here. You can do things as simply as saying, I want to set my white balance for that area. Just take the pick whip, hit a white spot. It told me that I needed to warm it up a little bit. You could add a little saturation if you want it to pop. Color correcting is an entire art of its own, and I don't want to get into that in this video, but I do most of my color correcting in here. And then moving past, I don't normally add any effects, so I kind of bypass that. But one thing that I do always mess with is the audio. Now one of the more recent updates of Premiere added this new essential sound window over here on the right. And this is a really cool thing, and I'm gonna show you why. Basically, what it allows you to do is I could take a clip like this that has some talking in it. But the talking, when I'm looking at the levels, aren't quite where I want them. Obviously, my left and right channels, I had actually protected one by setting it a little lower. I can go in and change that to where they're both the same, but that's not relevant right now. Basically, what I use in this tab is you can select the clip, you can go and tell it it's dialogue, go and change the preset to balanced male voice, which is what I am, so I'm looking for a balanced male voice. And it's gonna go in and it's automatically gonna match your loudness, it's gonna repair any issues, and it sets the dynamics and the EQ to boost your male voice. And what that ends up doing is cleaning up all the audio. It's almost like you have someone going in and doing your audio mixing for you. It's absolutely incredible how quick and easy that was. I was just blown away by this. Now let me show you another cool one. So since I told you all my dialogue is on the first track, I'll go ahead and set this stuff to dialogue as well. I'm gonna leave that as default, but as long as it's set to dialogue, the following part's gonna work. Now the second track, like I told you guys, is music. Now you can actually go and set the volume by sliding down on this bar here and going to negative however many decibels. And like I did up here with a keyframe, you can take the pen tool, click on a part of it, and then click a little farther down the time and turn the volume down, and that's going to manually duck the audio or ramp it down so that the volume will go from full volume playing, and it'll turn it down when the dialogue comes in. That's the manual way of doing what I'm about to show you. But now with this new essential sound window over here, you can go ahead and turn it to music. So anyway, after you set it as music, the important thing and the part that I like to use is this ducking feature. So this ducking feature is really cool because what it does is it actually automatically goes and turns down the music where you have other audio tracks that are going to take priority. Meaning if you have someone talking, you don't want the music at full volume behind it, you want it to turn down. Normally I would go through and manually do that, but this new essential sound palette over here allows it to be done automatically. So all you do is you can go ahead and say duck against dialogue, which since I had set all these to dialogue, it knows that when these turn up, the music needs to turn down. I normally just leave all these settings the same. You can screw with them if it's not working right. But when you hit generate keyframes, did you see what it just did down there? I don't know if you guys can see, but it automatically ducked this audio. Now it didn't duck it as much as I probably would have, but let's see how it sounds. I'm guessing we have some audio. Yep, and it already turned it down once it heard the other stuff. So obviously now it's pretty easy to go in and adjust the audio if you find necessary, but the fact that it goes through and sets all the keyframes for you to duck it is pretty amazing, and the amount of time that this whole essential sound thing saves is absolutely incredible. Anyone getting into editing, I highly recommend that you spend a little time and try to learn this window and this whole palette because it's extremely helpful. Now at this point, once I've worked my way through all these upper tabs, including titles, when you want to put titles here and there and the other, then the final thing to do is to export it. Now, when you export, basically you're taking all that sequence, all the little clips in there, and you're assembling it into one video that you can upload to YouTube or whatever online platform for sharing your video. So to do this, we're gonna go up to File, Export Media. Also the same as hitting Command E will do the same thing. That's gonna bring up the export window right here, and this is where you set all your settings for where you want it to go and how it's all gonna work. To make things short and to the point, format, you're going to want to be H.264. That's basically what everything on the internet uses. So stick with H.264. Adobe Premiere Pro actually has all these awesome presets, so you can go down and say, since I did shoot this in 4K and I kept it 4K all the way through, I'm going to go down and hit YouTube 2160p 4K. That's going to be a 4K preset for YouTube that's already made for me. I'm going to go to output name, click on that so I can choose where it's saving it. I'll go under vlogs, how to edit. There we go, how I edit. Clearly I'm not perfectly on point with my naming structure. After you have all that set, you go ahead and hit export. Now it's gonna go through, build the entire video together into one video that once it's done, you are able to upload to YouTube, and voila, now your video's done. All right, guys, so that was really it. That's my process in a nutshell. It's not all of it, but I feel like that was a pretty good little taste for you guys. Some of you guys that are editing, wondering what I'm doing that might be a little bit different than what you're doing, or if you're someone that's looking to get into editing and wanted to just get maybe a little glimpse into what goes into it and where to even start. Hopefully I helped a little. Another thing to keep in mind, there are plenty of tutorials online, and again, Premiere Pro is not the only editing software out there. There are a ton of great ones. Basically, I like to put it this way. Pick whatever you think is going to be the easiest for you to get your hands on and your easiest to learn. So don't get hung up on what has the most features or what's the most powerful editing software, because at the end of the day, all of them are probably going to do the job just fine. So normally I recommend starting with something like iMovie, or even I think GoPro makes a editing software that I think is free to download. Another one, DaVinci Resolve. I think they have a light version of that that's free. I believe it's cross-platform, so it should go Mac and PC. Again, you could just download the Premiere Pro trial. I think they give you like 30 days to try it out for free, the entire software, everything like that. See if you like it. If you don't, obviously you don't have to pay for it. If you do, then you got to do the little subscription thing. I forget how much it is. I think it's like $50 a month. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to wrap this up here. That was a lot of rambling, a lot of talking. I know you guys comment that you hate just hearing my voice. Let's get to the flying. We'll get back to it after this one. I just had to do this. This, again, was based on comments and requests of people asking if they could learn a little bit more about how I edit them. I didn't get too much into the theory of it. A lot of it's a storytelling thing that is way more than what I want to get into. during this this short of a little quick tutorial type video. So I hope you guys didn't mind the little glimpse into how I do this. And yeah, you guys know the drill. Like this video if you do, subscribe if you haven't, come be my wingman. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.